Hi, Eric. Welcome.
Hello, Pari. Thank you for having me.
So, for people who may not know about Nintex, can you give us some background of the company?
Yeah, no, happy to do so, Pari. And first off, just want to thank you for all the great work that you and your team do. Thank you for including Nintex. We've had an opportunity to participate in a few events over the years, and I always continue to be super impressed by the work that you all are doing. So I love talking about Nintex. A few things maybe outside of my kids, but I'd rather talk about more or my wife than Nintex. So we are a lot larger than most people realize. We have more than 10,000 customers around the world. In fact, we do business with more than half of the Fortune 100, over half the Global 1000. And really, it all comes down to our mission, and our mission is to transform the way people work through process intelligence and automation. We help companies discover, automate, and optimize their processes. We have just a phenomenal group of process experts in this company. I think if you totaled it all up, I wouldn't surprise me if we're, maybe 100,000 years of different experience. We have about 900 people in our company. Many of us have been in this industry for 10 plus years. And so tons and tons of expertise around process.
It seemed like the best kept secret in the industry on automation.
We want to change that. We try to change it over time. We have felt like, yes, one of the best kept secrets in the whole industry, although I think we're increasingly getting more attention.
Great. And in our research, one of the things which came out as the growth in enterprise automation. Is that like what you're saying? The investments increasing in your customers around automation?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I get a chance to talk with quite a few C-level executives, often the CIO or COO or people like that. And what I can tell you is that all of these organizations, and it's across industry, they have definitely been increasing their investments in automation. I think this whole zone of hyper intelligent automation, first stage of the pandemic, there was a lot of just urgent, collaborative use cases, things like that. But now it's really shifted. And I think we've become more advanced. We're getting further into these processes. We're getting past the initial low hanging fruit. And I think a lot of it right now, and obviously economy is tough, right? You've got really high inflation. Depending on the part of the world, you could argue maybe some signs of recession already in it or it's coming soon. And so people are very, very focused on things like cost reduction. They're focused on improving the customer experience. And then, of course, operational risk. I mean, there is a lot of different risk in the world today. So I think reimagining those relationships is critical. And what you've coined a system of experience, we're seeing a ton of investments in organizations in that area right now.
Are there any specific industries or use case are you seeing system of experience investors increasing? We are thinking of it as a integrated experience outcome for customers. Are you seeing that increase?
Yeah, I think there's a few that we see a ton. These whole investments in like system centers of excellence that they can go create these systems experience and get them deployed on high value use cases. The few that come to mind right away are definitely financial services, banking, financial services, insurance, that whole area, communications, public sector. And I'll give you a couple quick examples here. So in financial services, we are honored to get to do business with many of the world's leading banks. One of those banks, large top 10 global bank, is literally using process discovery across their entire retail and commercial bank to effectively understand all of these processes, really find where they're breaking down, where the manual work still exists. And then they are applying automation, and whether it's, automation tooling like we provide, or even in some cases, some custom built applications, but they're then getting those experiences for the customer and the efficiency driven out to that last mile. So I'd say process discovery is something we're seeing have a ton of interest right now in the banking side. I know in communications, I can think of one of the largest mobile phone telco providers in the world that we do business with. They have this whole challenge of they have so many different phone calls come into their call center, and the variation around what those calls can be makes it really hard for their agents to effectively serve the customer. And so one of the things that they've been able to do is leverage guided bot experience for the agent so they can answer the question perfectly, really quickly. It's driven down the amount of time it takes to resolve a call, and customer satisfaction has risen significantly.
And in terms of how the decision making is done, right? If you look at CEOs of companies focused on More on digital transformation, and automation is one dimension of it, largely defined through tactical use by business units, and then move into CIO. But increasingly, when we speak to CEOs today, they talk about automation is going to be one core aspect of their going forward digital transformation strategy. Is that changing in your customers as well? Give us a little bit insights on how your customers are decision making is changing and how is it being a CEO priority?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, first off, I could see it even just in the last 12 months. And so over the last 12 months, more and more of the companies that we do business with are literally saying we have a tops down initiative with CEO and board level support to really get after how our experiences work in the company, the level of efficiency, effectiveness, and the level of automation and modern technology we use. And step number one in many of those cases is that whole process discovery zone. And so we are seeing a lot of leading world-class companies all the way down actually into the mid-market who are starting more tops down with a lot more urgency and frankly, better funding. And so much more support for these initiatives. And it's coming more from the top. And when we started here, and I've been here about 9 years, we were very much bottoms up. We started with some individual in a part of the organization had something they cared about. It's really flipped around now to where we are seeing much more C-level involvement. And I think it's partly because they realize what's possible. There's more awareness of what's possible and there's more urgency.
When you talk to the CEOs of companies, right, and how are they thinking about driving these initiatives? Are they trying to centralize it? There's always the CIO organization which is making some of the decisions, and then the business units are driving the decision. Right now, you have global business services teams which are coming in, which are creating this shared organization. Let's say audit the cash, which touches HR, finance, procurement, and business units. So is there how they're approaching it changing? You said process discovery is where they start, which is great. But overall, is there a change in their how they want to approach this?
Yeah, I would say big change for us over the last 3 years we've seen in the market, and I've seen personally when I'm out in the field, is it used to be relatively rare to see like the center of excellence and a kind of a more structured, holistic effort around it. And who that reports to could vary in companies. Some companies, like I was on a call with a different large global bank on a Zoom call last week, chief digital officer, very centralized function, trying to transform this large scale, very long standing bank. So what we're seeing is more centralization, more senior resources applied to it. And I'd say a better job of prioritization. And we always saw maybe centers of excellence around a tool set. So, 3, 4 years ago, you might see an RPA center of excellence.
Yeah,
What I didn't used to see as much of was the process center of excellence. And I think, and in different, terms are used for that, but we are seeing whether it's, Office of Digital Transformation, process center of excellence, but we're seeing a holistic place that's really concerned about the process itself. And that's where you're seeing a lot of that need for process intelligence and discovery. And then people go execute from there. And the execution could happen centrally. The execution could happen down in a line of business or business services group. But it starts with that hub.
God. So if you're starting with process, so one is decision making has gone up. Then you have focusing on process discovery and process intelligence. The way they deliver is using centers of excellence. And the execution could be through partnership, through their business units, or CSCIO organization. So it's and also the companies are also choosing between best in class to platforms. And every company talks about moving it into a platform company, right? And also there is a role for best in class. So how is that, the change happening across customers in terms of how they make decisions around these platforms?
Yeah. So the way I would say what we're seeing in the market is, if you thought a pure best in class where for every single little minute capability, you just pick the very best provider. I think that is difficult for organizations to absorb. And so on that one extreme, that would be the very end. On the other extreme, you'd say, hey, I'm just going to bet on one platform provider and do everything with them. And the reality of it is there's a little bit too much diversity in the complexity of the use cases and the personas of the people who can build this automation. And so, what we're seeing is something a little bit in the middle where people are not going pure best of breed, but they're saying, look, I know I want to have a limited set of platforms, but I need the platforms who effectively are best of breed for what I'm trying to do. And so I'd say it's really become a best of breed platform approach where, you think of something like what we go after sophisticated and moderately complex use cases, and that can be built by ops pros. Well, we're best of breed at that. There are some other providers, let's say above us, that are really, really focused on only the most complex use cases built by professional developers. And so they're best of breed for that. We're best of breed for what we do. But we're both platform companies. But what they're not doing is saying on each of the little components, they're going to go best of breed, because then you end up with 40 technologies. They don't want 40 technologies. They want 3 to 5.
Got it. Got it. So it's not going to be one. It's not going to be 40. It's going to be anywhere between 3 to 5. And best in class in each, and each of them has certain scale and expertise, so that you can drive that transformation for them.
Exactly. I would say to think about it as you go with a handful of providers that are really best in class in their zone, and you bring it together, and then you get a holistic solution that adds value and meets your needs.
Got it. Got it. So any thoughts on the future? Any other things outside of what you spoke about?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big one we're thinking about right now is really that future of process intelligence. I think that one there is huge, and I think that front end, and you guys talk about it in your system experience and hyper intelligent automation. That front end makes such a difference on what you then do from there. And so I think in that zone, you're going to increasingly see a greater impact from AI and ML based models, and those things are getting stronger and stronger. And so things like, um, you know, process identification, predictive process design, there's a bunch of stuff coming there that, we and others, a few others are starting to provide to the market. And so I think that front end, will be massive. I think that, every significant organization, when we look down the road in 3 to 5 years, will have effectively a process system of record with deep process intelligence capabilities. They will have real time ongoing insight across the organization. And I think that's going to have a dramatic impact on the level of automation that we ultimately see in the industry.
Interesting. So organizations kind of organize their internal data, and the AI and ML models continue to evolve. And using things like generative AI, we can almost define the future process which is required. I think it's exciting how automation is a very important use case of the machine learning and AI innovation, which is happening in universities and startups as well as in hyperscalers. So automation is one thing where the immediate value of the AI investments could get realized in enterprises. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, it actually makes it real. I mean, it's one area where AI is real. A lot of this stuff is very theoretical. Our industry is a place where AI is actually having a very real, tangible impact.
Absolutely. And thanks, Eric. Any last comments or advice for us on what we should focus on going into 2023?
Well, I guess, I mean, first of all, I'll just say thank you. We here at Nintex, we love the work we do. I feel super blessed, and I know my 900 colleagues feel the same. I mean, the opportunity to make such a difference is huge, and we love the work you guys are doing. So thank you for the opportunity to contribute. I think this whole notion of systems experience, and really both that employee and customer experience, is huge. Your vision for where this market's going, I think, is super expansive. It's very complete, super exciting. So thank you for the work you're doing, and I know people will get a great value out of the remaining sessions today.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks for the partnership, and thanks for being part of our conference today. Thanks, Rick.
Thank you.